What's up, YouTube? In one of my prior videos, I mentioned I would talk a little bit about this issue that disrupted the Bulldog movement for a minute. It was nothing serious, but it could have been real serious if people didn't think about it. If they had reacted first, it could have been a lot worse. Now, a lot of people has heard at one time when the Southerners and the Bulldogs were supposedly running together, were allies, had a truce agreement, whatever you want to call it. The fact of the matter is, it was a mutual understanding, and this is where the BDN, the Bulldog Nation, played a role in that, which there was no problem with that. It was cool, actually. The whole problem was what this guy had in mind, and it happened in the early 90s, or that's when it came to light. Who knows how long this guy was plotting it or thinking. But I've always mentioned that I wouldn't use no names, I wouldn't use no hoods, out of respect for the people that I'm talking about or whatever they represent. But in this case, I'm going to make an exception. And not because of what this guy was trying to do, but because at the time he was trying to do it, he was an undercover informant for the feds, which came to light eventually and caught up to him. Well, this guy, his name is Mousy Morales. Now, Mousy, he grew up in Fresno, but he was born in LA. So every time he would go into the system, in his paperwork, it would say LA, so he would end up getting put with a lot of dudes from LA. And it was okay for him. He wiggled around and it was all right for him. And that was because, excuse me, that was because a good friend of his that was from Fresno is an OG for the Southerners. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys know what I mean by OG. And for those that this is their first time listening, I'll just put it this way. I'm 53, so if I call them OGs, then you should know who they are. Now, he was good friends with this guy, and to this day, he's still an OG. But I won't mention his name. Well, anyways, Mousy had this idea, and he had an agreement made with this certain person. And his idea was he was supposed to try and convert Fresno to running Southside. And I heard his stories before. I heard his pitch points. I was locked up at this time in the county jail with Mousy. We were in the same pod. The only thing is, when all this came to light and it all came out, I guess he got a tip or something from somebody, but he locked it up in the county jail. Now, middle of the night, the feds came in and made it look like he was being transferred somewhere. But, you know, after a while, everybody knew what he did. You know, they pulled him out, locked him in the back somewhere. I know he didn't get transferred at that time because he was still in the county jail. They probably put him back with high power, single cell, yellow jumpsuit to keep him away from everybody. Not for our protection, but for his protection. Now, his plan was to convert everybody from Fresno, convert the Bulldogs to run Southside. And that was the whole reason why the OGs from the South put the red light on the Bulldogs, because they thought that eventually Bulldogs were going to be Southsiders. Now, it's in paperwork. It's in paperwork that was floating around in the county jail at this time when it all came out. And he had some followers. Um, he had people. He had a I would say not an army, but he had a few people that were going along with it. And even out of respect, I won't put none of their names out. But I would say the names were put out, and as soon as they came into county jail, they would get blasted. They would get touched up pretty good, and some if not all, as a mark, they were getting sliced in their face, and it was meant to, the slice was supposed to be done on the ear, and that was so they can be identified later. So it'd be on the cheek or on the ear. The main target was the ear, from the top of the ear to the bottom of their jaw. That was so they can be marked. Now, so they would come in and they would get blasted. Soon as they would hit the pod, and none of them ever got killed. I'm not gonna say that they never got killed, but they got that mark, and some caught on, so some locked it up. Soon as they came in, as soon as they walked in the door, they let it be known so they can get locked up, and eventually it was it was stopped. But that's the whole purpose of Fresno, um, hanging out, kicking back, however you want to put it. Fresno was cool with the South Side, and it was cool. I didn't have no problem with it. They respected me. I respected them. Hey, I met a lot of good dudes from down south. Actually, when that happened, that made me open my eyes, and it taught me to judge people for who they are. You know, and it helped me understand that it's hard to not like somebody. It's hard to hate somebody, um, until you get to know them. And it doesn't matter how people look, or how people look at you, or how you look at them. And I understood at that time that it's a personality thing. People might people might look all tough and look all mean and hard and like they're about the business, but that's just their personality. They're gonna be who they are. So when that happened, and we were on the south side, uh, part of the day room, I'll put it like that. Um, I met a lot of good dudes, and from that point on, I've always looked at things differently. You know, even after the red light was stopped. I think it was about 97, 98. We started having little skirmishes. Usually, it would start in the basketball court. Um, we would play basketball, and somebody pushed somebody too hard, or something like that. It, it was a ticking time bomb. It was a ticking time bomb where the dogs knew eventually the red light would stop. Um, and the Southsiders probably wanted to rush the dogs even before that. Who knows what they were thinking? Not all of them, but some. And at the same time, the Bulldogs already knew there was going to be a day when that shit was just going to end. So these little pushing and shoving, eventually one day, it just cracked off. Now, I hear this of this guy. He rushed an OG from the South, and that caused a statewide green light. I wouldn't say that was the reason, but I would say that was the breaking point because little stuff was already happening. And one reason why it was happening is because there were times where the Southsiders would have a meeting and they would call us to their meeting. And respectfully, we would say, "No, we're good, we're cool." And they used to look at us like, "Wait a minute, I thought you're supposed to be running with us." And we were looking at it like, "No, we don't run with you guys. I mean, we're cool, but we're not a part of the Southern United Raza. But we're cool though." So we started to get eyeballed a little bit, and we knew it was gonna stop at any moment. I think for me it was the end of '97 where we got into it over a basketball game, and for some reason I knew it was gonna happen because the game didn't start off like a regular game like we used to play. It started off with there was already mean mugs, and it was like, okay, well, let's play. And from the jump, there was some hard fouls, and I knew it was gonna be that day. It was gonna be the day where, at least where I was at, where that red light was gonna stop. Now we got into it. It was a pretty even match. I'm not gonna say we smashed on them and they smashed on us because it was like an isolated thing on the basketball court, and not even all the Southsiders jumped. Um, it was if they wanted to, they could have, and they would have smashed on us. But it was more like the two teams that were playing against each other, got into it, and the yard went down, and it wasn't even like there was no weapons. It wasn't even like we were trying to take each other's head off, because there was opportunities there where somebody could have got booted in the face. It was just we just had to let off that steam, and and we let it off. And there was some dogs still in the buildings and whatnot, but and they didn't get rushed after. It was just a isolated basketball game thing where at the end we were still even communicating, like, we basically worked it out. We talked it out. We knew both sides had hot heads at that day, so it was what it was. But at the same time, it was happening more often in the system, and everybody knew that there was going to be a time where the red light was going to stop. And I can't even tell you exactly when it stopped, but for me, that's when it stopped, because I even knew that if we went back out there to the yard, or when we went back out into the yard, if we went to the same yard, that it was going to kick off again. Just like now, we would have had to rush because even then we were outnumbered. We were only like 20 deep, you know. But all that red light, it was all based on that Bulldog Nation thing, where the OGs were believing that the Bulldogs were going to run south side, and when they put the red light on, it was also put on the north, but that was just so they can kick back and watch us fight. But we had no problem with that, and we did have an understanding where if we had the shorthand, the any Southsiders that were around, they were going to jump, and they did jump. And at the same time, if they had a shorthand and any dogs were around, the dogs were going to jump. But for the most part, anytime the Northerners would hit the yard, they would come in, they would bring them in 10 at a time, 15 at a time. And it would be the same thing that the dogs are going through now. But I can honestly say we never rushed the Northerners 150 to 10. Not even when the South Side was rushing them. Anything that we were involved in, the dogs would always rush. And if the South Side followed, then they followed. Where I was at, we were never told to rush them. We were just going to rush them because that was the thing to do. They never told us that we had to rush. We had to go on the front line. I was never told that. And I had a lot of respect for the South. They gave me a lot of respect. At this time, I think I was like 28, 29. But I had a lot of respect for them. They had a lot of respect for me. We were on a good communication level where when before anything would happen, we would sit down and talk, and a lot of times it was gonna happen over some bullshit. But the dudes I used to talk to really good, we used to talk about the red light thing. We used to talk about, someday it's gonna stop, and I put it out there, and some other dogs put it out there, and some Southsiders put it out there that, man, when it stops, we just got to do what we got to do. We got to do what's what's in front of us. We have to deal with it. But at the same time, that's what prison's about. And way ahead of time, I expressed to them that, no hard feelings. You got to do what you got to do. I got to do what I got to do. But it stops right there. It's not like I'm gonna hate you for it. But at the same time, I gotta look out for me. You gotta look out for you. And I also told the people that I respected. As a man, I'll tell you straight up, I'm not gonna stab you because I consider you my friend. I look at you as a friend. You respect me, and I respect you. So you don't gotta worry about being stabbed. Now, I'm not gonna lie. There was some that, I'll hit them, but there were others that, I wouldn't even do that. I'm not gonna try to take a man's life, and I'm telling them I respect them, and they show nothing but love. I'm not gonna try to take his life. I'm not gonna try to catch him slipping. But there was some where I would try to take their life. It's like they would try to take mine. Never came down to it, but we had some good some good rumbles. Just it's what we had to do at the time. But anyways, I just wanted to share a little about why the red light started and when the dogs were kicking it with the Southsiders, and we weren't Southsiders. And same thing the North is doing now. We got a lot of help from the North. We got called a lot of shit from the North because we were kicking it with the Southsiders. But they're doing the same thing now. So I wonder if any of them that are my age remember that, because I think if it's ever gonna stop, it's gonna be the OGs that make the call. Everybody knows if people are winning the program with the dogs are programmed. Everybody knows that. It's in the past. It's in the resume, man. The dogs can get along with anybody. The dogs will get respect and give respect, just like any other man, any other group in the system. And it's just always been like that. And that's because the dogs can do whatever they want to do. If they want to, if they want to program with you, they'll program with you. If they don't, they don't. But most of the time, if people are willing to program with the dogs will program. And back in the '90s, when the Southsiders and the dogs were getting along, the Southsiders back then they knew what it was. It wasn't no hate. It wasn't no hate. Now, I mean, everybody has to do what they got to do, but at the same time, they'll program. All right, well, I'm gonna cut this one here. I'm gonna cut it short. Like I've always said, this is only my 4th video, and I think I'm still learning. My 11-year-old son, believe it or not, he has a channel. He's the one teaching me how to make these videos and stuff. But he's 11 and he's showing me. So if anyone has any kids around that age that likes little video game videos, look him up. He goes by the name of Joey, and he posts little videos of this game called Battle Cats and Minecraft, and so if you got some kids that like to watch YouTube, that are allowed to watch YouTube, check out his channel. Show him some support. He's been doing it for about 6 months now, and he's helping me with this. So mine aren't always going to be perfect, but eventually I'll get better. I got a lot of stories that I'm going to tell you guys, but it's always not to glorify, but so people can look at situations from a different view. I've always say we can look at the same thing, but to each person they're gonna see a different picture. With that being said, hope everybody's in good health. Hope your families are in good health. Hope your families are safe. It's a cold world. It's a cold world out here, and the innocent ones are always the ones that find out first. With that, have a good night. Hit the like, subscribe, the notification, make a comment. I'll acknowledge you. That's my word. Until next time, peace.